Do you think you get put in a box?
Yeah, a little
absolutely,
bit.
Absolutely. I constantly get asked, especially in the first term, are you more like Laura Bush or are you more like Hillary Clinton? And I'm like, is that it? That's all those are the two choices.
And you had that everyone said, that the reporters said, or are you Hillary Clinton or Barbara Bush?
That's right.
And I always just said, well, I think I'll be Laura Bush. I knew Laura Bush pretty well.
A great moment there. First Ladies Michelle Obama and Laura Bush with our own Cokie Roberts. We'll talk about that in a bit. But first, our roundtable is here. Cokie, of course. George is back. With us also Democratic strategist Donna Brazile and ABC's political director Rick Klein. Thank you all. George, the real big political story this week was a significant setback for the White House on the health care law. They are delaying the implementation of the employer mandate that requires all companies over 50 employees to provide health care. How big a setback? What's going on?
They're changing the law. We have a Treasury Secretary. We have 3 Deputy Treasury Secretaries, underneath whom there are 12 Assistant Secretaries. Late Tuesday afternoon, they sent out one of the 12. Didn't send him out. He did it on a web posting that said, by the way, the law passed by Congress that makes no provision for waiving this shall be waived.
By the way, they did this while the entire White House press corps was on a plane from Tanzania on a 20-hour flight. But anyway.
Here is the problem. In addition to the fact that Obamacare is hideously complicated Rube Goldberg contraction, beyond that, it puts in place perverse incentives. The employer mandate says if you have 50 or more full-time employees, and until Congress changes this, which it will, it defines full-time employees as 30 hours a week, you have to pay a substantial sum for each of their health care. Now, the employers, not being dummies, have said, well, let's have fewer employees and make many of the employees we have part-time employees.
Working 29 and a half hours.
What the Obamacare requires for it to work mass irrationality, both on the part of employers to ignore that incentive and on the part of young people who are supposed to pay 3, 4, 5 times more for health insurance than it would cost them to just pay the fine and ignore it.
Now, Donna, a lot on the left were unhappy with this. I mean, a lot of progressives said, you know, why are we letting employers off the hook?
Well, first of all, as Mark Twain once said, the death of Obamacare is greatly exaggerated. Look, 96% of businesses that with 50 or more employers already provide health insurance. Right. So this is not going to delay the implementation. It's not going to delay the law. The law will still go into effect on October 1st, 2013, with respect to the health exchanges. George, there's an 800 number, so you don't have to text. It's 318-2596, consumer call numbers. They're already providing information for people who are confused. It is a very complex law. It's a large bill.
Well, but it's complex. It is complex. And when Massachusetts went through it, they had similar difficulties, and it was just one state and a fairly sophisticated state. But look, this works for the president in the long run politically, even though he's going to take a lot of flack on it right now, because it delays implementation until after 2014, and of the parts that people are most upset about, and then there is an intervening election, as they say. So that is helpful to him. I do think, however, the Republicans are telling me that they think that they can now rev up the conversation on Obamacare again, which they love because they think that's a strong suit for them, and hope that immigration goes off the front pages as a result of it.
Well, Rick, they've tried 43 times, is it, to repeal Obamacare. The administration was able to do something that the Congress has not been able to repeal, at least a part of it.
That's right. And let's get ready for number 44 after this. Look, you have even Democrats saying that implementing Obamacare has the potential to be a train wreck. Well, now you have the prospect of a slow-motion train wreck. And here's the thing about this particular provision. This affects thousands of workers, maybe, not the millions of workers who are going to be impacted over the long haul on this. So if you couldn't even get this piece of it right after a 3-year ramp-up period, you're saying you need another year and a half just to put in this tiny slice of Obamacare?
Oh, but it's not a tiny slice. This is huge. I mean, employer mandates are by far the toughest part of it.
It's the toughest to implement, but it's by no means the most complicated in terms of getting
individuals involved. But it was going to affect more, every employer because the paperwork requirements.
Right, and who is enforcing it? That's the other big question. And at the moment, apparently, nobody. It's self-reported. But that all of that is genuinely complicated. So there are policy reasons for delaying it as well as political reasons.
But Cokie, what's happening right now is that HHS is giving out out grants to states to open up these health care centers. The individual mandate provisions will still be in effect. Young people will continue to sign up. They're learning more about this program. So it's moving, but it's not moving as fast as some people
like to see. Both sides
George,
are going after women.
Young people are not going to sign up if they can do elementary arithmetic, which they can. Second, why not just
suspend? If their mama tell them to sign up, they're going to sign up.
Why not suspend? That's not the way my children behave. Why, indeed, not suspend the individual mandate? Because the law doesn't provide it. The law means nothing to these people. And by the way, this is why, Cokie, this is going to affect the immigration debate. Because the House Republicans are going to say, no matter what we write in the law, this administration will waive any provision it doesn't like.
Okay, so let's get to immigration, because we have a big week coming up. And you now seem to have a consensus of virtually the entire Republican establishment that the immigration bill should pass. We heard from President Bush. Scott Walker weighed in on this. Even Jan Brewer out in Arizona is in favor of the Senate bill. But, Rick, it's not going to fly in the House.
That's right. The establishment and the House of Representatives are not on the same page on this. There's no question about it. We all know the central question. It's going to come down to Speaker Boehner. Does he want to go against the will of his own conference in the interest of the greater good of the Republican Party, in a policy interest? And ultimately, does he want to sacrifice his speakership on this? And there are a lot of issues that you can foresee John Boehner be willing to go down in flames over. Immigration reform, it's hard to imagine that being on that list.
And his argument would be, look, my main job is to hold on to the House of Representatives. And the Republican establishment, whatever that is, does certainly want to hold on to the House of Representatives. Without it, they would be powerless in Washington right now. And so if Boehner's calculation is that the only way that you can do that is to sink this bill if it has legalization in it, then that's what's going to happen.
But they're getting pressure from the business community, the Chamber of Commerce, the clergy, evangelicals, and Majority Leader Cantor said that they're going to do a piecemeal approach. They're going to look at what the Homeland Security Committee and Judiciary Committee passed and try to come up with a bigger and better border security
They're going to try to
package.
do everything except for citizenship.
But they can.
That's right.
Now, but tell me, the White House doesn't sign a bill that doesn't have a path to citizenship.
Absolutely. In the Senate, Democrats and the Republicans, I mean, we have a bipartisan model that passed in the Senate that the House should take up, but they're not. What the Democrats in the House will do is go after 24 to 25 Republicans to see if they can get them to support a more moderate package and not the extreme package.
George, you're shaking your head.
The number of Republicans who might lose their seats because they oppose this immigration bill is vanishingly small. It's just not going to happen that way. Furthermore, don't look at July, look at August. 4 Augusts ago, Congress was in the midst of another comprehensive reform, that time of health care. The Republicans went home and the Democrats went home and held town meetings, and uproar broke out. And when they go home this August, the Republicans are going to go to their town hall
before
meeting.
they go home.
Well, I don't think
Right.
July. They're coming.
Right.
They have a big conference on the 10th, which is just in a couple of days, and they'll decide that then.
Cokie, I want to move on to the extraordinary interview you had with First Ladies Michelle Obama and Laura Bush. And I've got to say, these two really genuinely seem to like each other. Take a listen.
Tell us why. Why was this important to you to come and have this conversation?
It's because I like this woman.
So
that was a moment. That was quite a nice moment.
And it seemed genuine. You wrote the book on First Lady.
Well,
so what did you literally? So what did you learn?
Michelle Obama wanted to be there and have a conversation with Laura Bush. She did not want to make a speech. She could have taken over that conference that the Bushes had set up. It was a First Ladies of Africa summit. And if she had come in and made a speech, she would have gotten all the headlines. And instead, she wanted to have a conversation with Mrs. Bush and just talk about what it's like to be a First Lady and to exercise the power of the First Lady. And it was very important to those women in Africa because they feel strongly that often when somebody is out of office, that person goes to jail or gets shot.
Right.
And the notion of seeing these two women from different parties who had succeeded, one succeeded the other, be there together, be civil, and be friendly beyond civil, was a very important message to send.
Do you think we're going to see a more assertive Michelle Obama in the second term?
Well, I think she's been assertive in her own way. You know, when they made that crack earlier earlier about being put in boxes. You know, that's true. And everybody says, oh, well, she's just doing these namby-pamby things. What she's doing is very significant.
All right. Thank you very much, Cokie, Rick, Donna, George. Appreciate it.